Your container plants keep dying and you can't figure out why. You water them, give them sunlight, maybe even talk to them nicely, but they still wilt, yellow, and eventually give up. Container gardening looks simple, but it's actually one of the hardest ways to grow plants because everything depends on getting details right. Today, I'm revealing the 20 hidden mistakes sabotaging your container gardens, and more importantly, how to fix each one so your plants thrive instead of surviving. Let's start with the foundation mistakes that doom your plants before they even have a chance to grow properly. That cute little 6-inch pot might look perfect for your tomato seedling, but here's the problem. Small containers dry out incredibly fast, sometimes twice a day in summer heat. Your plants spend all their energy just trying to stay alive instead of growing. The roots have nowhere to spread, nutrients run out quickly, and you become a watering slave. The fix is simple, but not obvious. Use containers at least 12 inches wide and deep for most vegetables and flowers. Think bigger than you believe you need. That massive container might look empty initially, but your plants will reward you with explosive growth and way less maintenance. Every gorgeous decorative pot without drainage holes is basically a death trap for your plants. Water sits at the bottom, the soil becomes waterlogged, and your plant roots literally drown. You might think you can control watering perfectly, but one heavy rainstorm or heavy hand spells disaster. Always check for drainage holes before buying containers. If you fall in love with a pot lacking them, either drill holes yourself or use it as a decorative outer pot with a properly draining inner liner you can remove for watering. Here's what happens when you skip the drainage tray. You get nervous about watering because you don't want to make a mess on your deck or patio. So you give your plants these wimpy little drinks that barely penetrate the soil surface. Your plants start showing signs of both overwatering and underwatering simultaneously because the roots never get properly hydrated. Get drainage trays for every container, and don't just let water sit there. Empty them after watering, or better yet, use that captured water to hydrate other plants. This simple step makes you more generous with watering because you're not worried about mess. Garden soil seems like the obvious choice because it grows things beautifully in your yard, right? Wrong. Garden soil is way too heavy and dense for containers. It compacts, blocks drainage, and creates an environment where roots can't breathe. Plus, you're importing weeds, pests, and diseases directly into your containers. Potting mix is specially formulated to be lightweight and well-draining. It contains ingredients like peat moss, perlite, and bark that create air pockets for roots while retaining just enough moisture. Yes, it costs more than backyard dirt, but your plants will actually grow instead of slowly suffocating. Someone told you to add rocks or broken pottery to the bottom of your containers for drainage, and it sounds logical. But this actually makes drainage worse, not better. The rocks create a water table where moisture sits right above them, making the effective soil depth smaller and creating perfect conditions for root rot. Fill your entire container with a quality potting mix from top to bottom. The proper potting mix provides all the drainage you need without wasting valuable root space. Your plants want soil, not obstacles. Now that we've covered the foundation, let's talk about the plant selection mistakes that set you up for failure from day one. You see a gorgeous heirloom tomato variety and decide it's perfect for your patio container. But that 6-foot-tall, sprawling monster was bred for wide-open garden spaces, not confined pots. Regular varieties struggle in containers because they weren't developed for restricted root space and different growing conditions. Look specifically for container-friendly varieties when shopping. Plant breeders have created dwarf and compact versions of almost everything. Cherry tomatoes work better than beefsteaks, bush beans instead of pole beans, and compact herbs over full-size cousins. Read plant tags carefully and choose varieties that specifically mention container growing. Your container looks amazing with that sun-loving lavender planted next to moisture-loving impatiens. But this beautiful combination is actually a slow-motion plant murder scene. One plant needs daily watering while the other prefers drying out between waterings. One thrives in blazing sun while the other wants afternoon shade. Group plants with similar needs together. If you want full sun plants, fill the entire container with full sun varieties. If you love plants needing consistent moisture, pair them with others sharing that preference. This matching strategy makes your care routine simpler and keeps all plants happy instead of compromising and making them all miserable. Tomatoes, peppers, squash and corn are like the teenagers of the plant world. They eat constantly and need lots of space. When you squeeze these heavy feeders into regular-sized containers, they quickly exhaust soil nutrients and start showing stress signs like yellowing leaves and poor fruit production. Heavy feeders need large containers, minimum 5 gallons per plant, and more is better. If you're determined to grow tomatoes in containers, invest in the biggest pots you can manage and be prepared to fertilize more frequently. Or switch to lighter feeding crops like lettuce, herbs and flowers that are naturally better suited for container life. That tiny seedling tricks you every time. You plant 3 pepper plants in one container because they look so small and innocent. Fast forward 2 months and you have a crowded jungle where plants compete for every ray of sunlight and drop of nutrients. Overcrowded plants become weak, disease-prone, and produce disappointing harvests. Research the mature size of everything you plant and give each plant the space it needs to reach full size. This means fewer plants per container, but much better results. 1 healthy, well-spaced plant will outproduce 3 crowded, struggling plants every single time. Container plants feel temperature changes more dramatically than ground-planted ones because their roots aren't insulated by surrounding earth. Planting cool-weather crops like lettuce and spinach in summer heat, or warm-weather plants like basil and tomatoes too early in spring, leads to stressed plants that bolt, wilt, or refuse to grow. Pay attention to seasonal timing even more carefully with containers. Cool season crops need planting earlier in spring or later in fall. Warm season plants should wait until nighttime temperatures consistently stay above their comfort zone. Timing matters more in containers than anywhere else. Drop a comment below and tell me which of these mistakes you've been making, because I bet most of you are guilty of at least 3 of them. Here's where most container gardeners sabotage themselves with daily care decisions that slowly kill their plants. Overwatering kills more container plants than any other single mistake, and the tricky part is that overwatered plants look exactly like underwatered ones. Wilted yellow leaves that don't perk up even after watering. You think the plant needs more water, so you water again, creating a deadly cycle that drowns roots. The finger test saves plants and sanity. Stick your finger into soil up to your first knuckle. If it feels dry, water thoroughly. If it's still moist, wait another day. This simple check prevents the guessing game that leads to waterlogged roots and rotting plants. On the flip side, giving your plants tiny sips of water every day keeps the soil surface wet, but never penetrates deep enough to reach roots. The bottom half of your container stays bone dry while you think you're being attentive. Plants develop shallow root systems and become even more dependent on frequent watering. When it's time to water, soak the soil completely until water runs out the drainage holes. This deep watering encourages roots to grow throughout the container and makes plants more resilient. Think of it like giving your plants a satisfying drink, instead of making them sip through a straw all day. Container plants need water almost every day during peak growing season, and when you travel for a weekend or forget for a few days, they can literally die. Unlike garden plants that can tap into groundwater, container plants rely entirely on you for survival. Set up systems before you need them. Self-watering containers, drip irrigation, or even simple water globes can keep plants alive when you're busy or away. Ask neighbours to water if you're travelling, or group containers together to make the job easier for your plant sitter. Planning ahead prevents coming home to crispy plant casualties. More fertiliser equals bigger plants, right? Wrong. Container plants live in a small volume of soil, so fertiliser becomes concentrated quickly. Over-fertilising burns leaf edges, causes excessive leafy growth at the expense of flowers or fruit, and can actually kill plants outright. Start with a quality potting mix that contains slow-release fertiliser, then add liquid fertiliser at half the recommended strength every few weeks during the growing season. If your plants are growing and flowering well, they probably don't need more food. Yellow leaf edges and stunted growth often mean too much fertiliser, not too little. The opposite extreme is equally problematic. That initial fertiliser in the potting mix gets used up or washes out with frequent watering. Without supplemental feeding, container plants run out of nutrients and start showing pale yellowing leaves and poor growth, even when everything else is perfect. Container plants need regular feeding because they can't send roots into surrounding soil for nutrients. Establish a simple fertilizing routine using balanced, water-soluble fertilizer every 2 to 3 weeks during the active growing season. Consistent feeding keeps plants vigorous and productive throughout the entire growing season. Finally, let's cover the environmental and setup mistakes that create ongoing problems you might not even realize are harming your plants. You'd think plants always want maximum sunshine, but container plants actually need about half the sun that the same variety would need in the ground. The confined root system can't support a plant working overtime in blazing heat all day. Too much sun causes stress, wilting, and rapid water loss that even frequent watering can't fix. Check your containers throughout the day and note how many hours of direct sunlight they receive. Most vegetables need 6 hours, but in containers, they'll often perform better with morning sun and afternoon shade. If your plants are consistently wilted despite adequate water, they might be getting too much intensity rather than too little light. Heavy containers filled with wet soil become immovable objects, and that's a problem when weather conditions change. Spring plants need maximum sun, but summer heat requires shade protection. Storm winds can topple containers, and you might need to move plants to protect them from unexpected frost or hail. Put large containers on wheeled plant caddies before filling them with soil. This simple step lets you adjust placement as seasons change and makes maintenance easier. Moving plants into optimal conditions throughout the year dramatically improves their health and your success rate. Container plants are much more vulnerable to wind than you realize. Strong breezes dry out soil faster, can topple tall plants, and create stress that weakens plant immunity. Your beautiful balcony garden becomes a wind tunnel that leaves plants struggling to survive instead of thriving. Stake tall plants early in the season, not after they start falling over. Group containers together to create windbreaks, and use heavier pots in exposed areas. If your space is particularly windy, choose compact, sturdy plant varieties over tall, delicate ones that will spend the season battling elements. Container plants are sitting ducks for pests because they're isolated from natural predators and beneficial insects. A small aphid infestation can explode overnight and devastate your entire container before you even notice. Unlike garden plants that have soil ecosystems to help fight problems, container plants depend entirely on you for pest management. Check under leaves every time you water your containers. Look for holes, discolored spots, sticky residue, or tiny moving specks. Catching pest problems early means a simple spray with the hose can solve them, but waiting until leaves are covered means potentially losing the whole plant. Early detection saves containers that would otherwise become total losses. The biggest mistake is treating each container as an individual project scattered around your space. Plants naturally grow in communities, and container plants benefit from the same principles. Isolated containers dry out faster, are harder to maintain, and plants don't benefit from humidity and protection that grouping provides. Cluster your containers together in varying heights and sizes. This creates a microclimate where plants help each other stay moist and protected. Maintenance becomes easier when everything is in one area, and the visual impact is much stronger than scattered pots around your space. These 20 mistakes might seem overwhelming, but now you know exactly what's been sabotaging your container gardens. Start by fixing foundation issues first, then work through care and environmental factors. Your plants will reward your attention with the thriving, productive container garden you've always wanted. If you want to keep your plants alive even longer, check out this next video for more planting tips.